So, hello and welcome to Limitless. Today, International Women's Day 2023. I'm Ruth Harrison and I am joined today by a very inspiring woman. She had a thirst for knowledge. She attained her bachelor's degree in science and a master's, followed by a doctor of psychology from Cranfield University College in 1997. Her career is indeed remarkable, spending time as an actress and a news producer and presenter for B-Sky B Television, before embarking on a distinguished career in the civil service, where she is listed as noteworthy by Marquis Who's Who. And before I forget, she's also a mum of 7. I do not know where she finds the time, but please welcome today's guest, Dr. Suzy Walton. Welcome, Suzy.
Ruth, hi. Lovely to see you on International Women's Day.
So what a career you've had.
I think things have happened not in a linear way, Ruth. Things have happened in like a zigzag path. I think that if you set out to achieve certain things and then you achieve those things, that's real achievement. But I've set out to do certain things and they didn't work. So then I had to take a different path. And so I've had a zigzag career.
Talk us through what inspired you to get into the sciences.
Nothing. I didn't want to, I wasn't going to go into the sciences. So, well, I kind of was. I was at school in Nottingham. I was fairly clever, although I was left-handed, so I used to write backwards, and the teachers didn't like that because I'd say, put up a mirror and then you can see my writing, because I would write that way. And they'd say, no, you write the other way. So a bit tricky at school. So maybe I was heading perhaps for university, maybe even for medical school. However, my dad brought me up. We were home alone. It was just me and my dad in Nottingham. He'd been a Spitfire pilot during the war. And I kind of had a premonition that I needed to stand on my own 2 feet. So when I was about 14, I started making plans for how do you find your way in the world? What do you do? I realized that I just couldn't stay on at school and go to university. I knew I had to be self-sufficient. So I packed my suitcase at 16 and I went down to London so that I could try and be self-sufficient. So I did not head for university. There was this zigzag route, and I didn't actually get to university until I was 28, having had a career on the stage first, which was absolutely not intended.
Was it exciting or terrifying?
When you've got no safety net, when you've got nothing that's going to catch you, courage comes. The courage to just go out and get something. So there I was suddenly looking for a bar job or a restaurant job, and I was offered this part in Children of a Lesser God. Initially, I understudied the role because I had to learn American Sign Language, and also Lydia was American. So I had to speak like a deaf American 16-year-old. But I was with the show for 3.5 years. So that sort of gave me the confidence for this zigzag career, where I thought, well, if I can do that, maybe I can do other things.
Wow, I'm enthralled, and I'm thinking, International Women's Day, we always look to try and find ways to inspire and to find courage, etc. But just what you've described there, you're saying, well, maybe I did a good enough job. 3.5 years, and then taking the curtain calls and hearing the applause, that must have convinced you that you were doing something right. Do you think that's gone on to shape your behaviours in management and business and leadership as a consequence of that? Are you more empathetic to people in that situation, or do you feel... tell me how you feel.
I think that most people can do most things. You may not have the skills, but if you've got the desire to do it and the opportunity to do it, you probably can do it. So basically, it was a very steep learning curve, that one. That was really steep learning curve. But basically, I was my own producer, presenter and editor. I had a 1-hour travel program a week. It went out and it was networked to the whole of the country. And I would travel. Generally, within a week, I'd go abroad once or twice. I'd do live location reporting, bring it all back to the studio, mix in sound effects, call in some guests. And then every week, my program would go on the air. So I would always say to people, if you are offered an opportunity, take it, because either you won't like it, so then you'll want to exit yourself, because you'll, a bit like me in television, you'll think, I'm sorry, this is not quite right, the fit isn't right. Or you'll think, well, I really like this, but I lack some of the technical skills. You can always learn the technical skills.
So you've talked about sort of I wouldn't say falling into, but finding yourself in the entertainment business through acting and through publishing and media and television and subsequently radio. Where did the change happen to study sciences?
Yes, so I was at Sky News. I was a news producer, and I looked around and I suddenly realised that everybody I was working with, everybody was a graduate. And I thought, now is the time. So I went to the University of Hertfordshire and I studied psychology as a BSc. So at the same university, I did a master's degree.
And what then came?
I joined the Ministry of Defence. And my first role was for the Defence Evaluation and Research Agency in Farnborough at the end of a runway. And then I was asked to go up to Whitehall, to Ministry of Defence headquarters in Whitehall, which was a really big opportunity. And that was really the beginning of my civil service career when I actually moved into Whitehall.
So then you get called up to Whitehall. You're moving into the realms of serious civil service. I think we all kind of, associate that with James Bond and MI6 and everything else. But from what you're describing, not altogether too far from that. Did the little girl in Nottingham, who went on the stage, anticipate this is where your career was going to take you? And what were those first few days like? Because I imagine grey suited and probably fairly male dominated.
It's an intimidating environment. There was no sexism. The military were absolutely brilliant. I was a civilian in a military building. I was on a military payroll, but one of the few civilians. So everybody else was uniformed. I didn't have to do a 10K run with a rucksack on my back. But other than that, I was a military psychologist. And in other countries, the psychologists are uniformed. It was a really fascinating time. And I learned that in some workplaces, there is no discrimination, there is no sexism, there is support. I actually felt incredibly supported in the Ministry of Defence by my military colleagues. So I left the Cabinet Office in order to sit on boards. And I went and did another qualification called Chartered Director at the Institute of Directors to sort of give me the breadth that I felt I needed. And I think that since then, since I left Whitehall and since I became a Chartered Director, I've really tried to focus on diversity and helping women advance, because there's an awful lot more women that could sit on a board if only they believed they could.
I've been truly fascinated by your life story, and I could quite candidly and honestly go on forever asking you many more questions and searching your extensive career. It's been a real joy to speak with you. But what I'd love to kind of close on is, when you reflect back on an amazing career, and I know you're very modest and you say, well, it's zigzag and I've taken chances and I've been very lucky, all the things that we hear women say when they are being modest, and take it from me, and I'm sure those who will listen to this, is to say it's remarkable and very inspiring. What advice would you give to, I usually say 18-year-old self, but I'm going to say, what advice would you give to your 16-year-old self as you're packing your suitcase and you reflect back now?
Sometimes I think we forget to have fun, or I certainly did, because I couldn't, because I had to be earning money. And I think if I was talking to my 16-year-old self, I'd say, on your way to the West End stage via the YMCA in Hornsey, just have a little bit of fun along the way. And I think I missed out on the fun bit. I'd like to go back and have a bit of fun.
This has been inspiring, Suzy. Thank you so much for your time today, and all the very best in the future. And do have fun.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you very much.